Hey everybody, this is Jordan from Strops and Stones, and I'm here today to show you guys what I feel like is the best sharpening setup for a guided system that you can get around the $100 price point. So let's just get right in and let's talk about who this setup may be for, which in my opinion is going to be someone who has a smaller collection with average steels. Think S30V, 154CM, 14C28N, something that's not going to be super wear resistant like M390 or a lot of these super fancy tool steels like K390, Rex 45, etc., etc. You can do those steels, it's just going to require a lot more work, so do keep that in mind. And if you're wanting to do those kind of steels, you probably want a better system anyways. So, with that being said, let's kind of go ahead and cover what you get around $100. So for $50, you get the Worksharp Precision Adjust, which comes with the rod, obviously the clamp with the angle adjustment system in the base. Then you get the triangle rod sharpening setup here, which is 320 grit, a 600 grit, and a 2000 grit ceramic, which does an okay job. Doesn't do the best job though, which is kind of why we added some upgrades, okay? So the very first upgrade I got here is a universal stone holder, which holds any 4-inch stone. Usually these are KME style stones, but you can basically fit anything that's 4 inches in there. So if you find anything else, it'll fit. It slides on the stock rod, just like this, slides in, then you put in your O-ring, just like you would with the triangle rod, okay? And then the next set of accessories I purchased are the Venev Dog stones is what they're called. That's their name, Venev Dog stones. They are double-sided stones with 2 grits each. So the first is gonna be a 100 grit and a 240 grit. And then the second stone it comes with in this package is going to have a 400 grit and an 800 grit. Now, if you notice, if you can see that, it says F400, F800, and same with the lower abrasives, F100, F240. The reason for this is because they use what's called a FIPA grit system, which is slightly different than what we use. So if you think of like the F100 would be very comparable to like a 150 grit in, say like a DMT or a diamond plate, okay? So the F240 is gonna be closer to 400 grit. Then the F400 is gonna be closer to roughly 1,000 grit. And then the F800 is gonna be closer to 3,000 grit. So you're gonna get a much nicer polish and much nicer progression than what you get with the original factory abrasives. Now, one downside to this stone is going to be that they're only 25% abrasive concentration, meaning, they didn't use 100% abrasive to fill this resin binder. So it's a pro and a con. It's a pro because the scratches are going to be easier to remove as you go through the progression, but it's also a con because your cutting speed is going to be cut down. So it really depends on the way you look at it on whether it's going to be a pro or a con for you. But the next pro, which is a major pro, is that you get both these stones with all 4 abrasives for literally only $18. $18, that's a steal. I mean, these stones are phenomenal, and you get that for only $18. I mean, you can't beat that. Yeah, I mean, it's hands down, in my opinion, for this setup, the best you can get. The only other really accessories I truly recommend is going to be a angle cube, which is not really truly necessary for this system because you are able to adjust your angle so easily. But it's important because, if you look at these Venev Dog stones, you can kind of see that they're not perfectly equal. So when you're switching stones, it's nice to know that you're matching the exact angle that you originally set up. But again, not mandatory. The next one would be a 4-inch strop. I don't ever really use these. I'm more of a freehand kind of guy, so I use a standard strop, like a block strop that you would get. But For a beginner, this could be very valuable. It would just slide in here, same way as the stones would. You would just press down and it would lock into place. Obviously you have your compound on here and you could go to town, and it's only downward strokes. So it's only $7. So in my opinion, well worth $7, okay. Compound, you can choose any compound. I always recommend Gunny Juice, but there are compounds that are diamond based compounds as cheap as $4 on Gritomatic, so keep that in mind. And that's really about it. I mean, with this setup, you'll see the results that we're gonna get on this Civiviodium here. So yeah, I mean, this is not gonna be a how-to sharpening video. This is gonna be more of just a review of the product itself and what you can expect in terms of results with this setup. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to town and sharpening this knife, and hopefully you guys enjoy the results as much as I do, because I think it's fantastic. So to start, I'm gonna grab my angle cube, I'm gonna zero it out. Now again, I'm not really aiming to reprofile. I'm aiming to match Civivi's factory angle, which I'm assuming is around 20 degrees. So I have this set at 20 degrees. We're gonna see if it removes the Sharpie or not and go from there. So these are splash and go stones. So you just add a tiny little bit of water, rub it in, and we will see what this does here. So this might be a little less than 20. We might have to go down to roughly, that could be even 19 degrees to be honest. So let's get this back up on here. And drop down just another degree. Let's see where that puts us. Now, if you notice, there's a little bit of Sharpie near the base of the bevel. That's me kind of going over a little bit. If you look really closely, you can see I've actually matched, and you can kind of tell where this area that didn't get Sharpied, you can see the bevel is clearly even all the way across. So 19 is our angle. That's the angle we're gonna go ahead and use, and we're just gonna go to town. Now, there are many different ways you can use this abrasive. A lot of people go up and down like this, okay? I prefer to go in a sweeping motion like this. It all depends, okay? There's no necessarily right or wrong way, but I'll tell you the reason why I prefer to do sweeping motions, and it's because I feel like when you go like this, right, when you're going up and down, you're going to town, okay? And people have a tendency to either spend too much time on the tip, spend too much time on the heel, on the belly, in one certain area. They're generally removing too much material. So then you have a wavy apex, and you may have what looks to be a taller bevel on part of the blade, say the heel, and then it kind of thins out. And then maybe on the tip it gets fat again because somebody's removing too much material. So if you just kind of go like this and don't use a ton of pressure, if you're matching the angle that's already on there, you're not going to need to be super aggressive, but you're maintaining the same amount of abrasive being used on the entire bevel at the exact same time at all times. Okay, now this is going to go kind of slow because I'm in an awkward setup. Just for camera view purposes, okay? So I'm gonna try and knock this out quickly, but Being that this is only 25% abrasive, keep in mind too, this may take a little longer than anything with a diamond plate or even a resin bonded diamond stone at 100% concentration. Always want to be careful with the choil not to remove any material in this area. So even though you see my stone kind of getting close to that area, I'm not touching it with the abrasive. Keep that in mind. It's a huge area you want to be careful with. Now, I'm going to show you guys one fatal flaw with the Worksharp Precision Adjust. And that's if you put pressure on this, you see this moves, which adjusts your angle. So there are things people have done in the past to fix this. Somebody got a 2x4 I saw on Facebook the other day, and they wedged a 2x4 underneath to make sure that your angle always stays the same. For me, my answer is just light pressure, but to be realistic, that 2x4 setup would actually work a lot better. It'll keep it where it needs to be. So that's the one really truly fatal flaw here. But for me, again, if you just use light pressure, you see I'm not moving a ton. I am moving a little bit, but with how little I am moving, it should not really be a huge deal. And there's a micro bevel on this factory edge, so it's going to take a little bit of time to remove enough material to get past that micro bevel. So we're not quite there with the burr yet. We're very, very close. You can see at the heel, I've had to work a little extra in this area because this original grind was not done very well. It's very, very common on factory edges. So you did see I focused in this main area a few times just to try and remove a little extra material to get to that micro bevel quicker. It seems like I'm like right on that micro bevel, and in some areas I've actually already apexed, like right around here and right around here I've already apexed. So gotta just work it all the entire way so I form a full nice burr along the whole entire edge, and then we'll be able to switch sides. So we got that burr nice and clean all the way across, except for the very, very heel right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip it over. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. I assume I'll run into the same issue on the heel. And then we'll just kind of flip back and forth and just make sure, you know, we slowly remove an even amount of material until we get a nice little burr at the heel here. So that's kind of the game plan for now. We'll lock and load. Even though it shouldn't be necessary, I'm gonna go ahead and Sharpie this side again as well. I just like to pause for a quick second. So this is a good way to see, and I should have pointed it out last time. You can see it removes all along the bevel perfectly, but at the heel, it leaves some Sharpie there. That's because when they did that initial grind, whether it be the micro bevel or the actual grind itself, they did it uneven and just removed more material at this particular area. Again, it's very, very common with factory grinds. You see it all the time. So to get it perfect, it does take a little bit of time and patience. Alright, so now we just finished with the 100 grit, so now we'll move on to the 240. All we gotta do is flip the stone over. Now all we're really doing is aiming to remove the last scratch pattern. We've already apexed, so we have a sharp knife already. So literally all we have to do is just spend some time on each side and just try and get those deep scratches out. After we do that, we can go ahead and move on. The longest part of this is literally already out of the way. Now all we're doing is just refining that apex and removing scratch pattern to give a nice look. Alright, so you notice at the end there I did some burr removal, burr minimization really. So I did a few passes on each side, kind of like in a stagger. So I did 5 on one side, 5 on the other, 3 on the other, then 3 again, then 2, 2, 1, 1, down to where the burr is pretty minimal. This knife is sharp right now, it's digging into my skin right away. So now here comes the important part, and this is why I recommend getting the angle guide. When we set this up, it was 19 degrees. So this should still be zeroed. Maybe not. So we'll zero it again. And we just want to make sure we get a good, accurate reading of what this actually is now. So now it's still reading at 19, which is good. I mean, I was worried with the convex, it might go like 19.1, 19.1, 19.2, but it's not. It's still at 19. So you'll see that when we change the stone in here and we go to this 800, that reading is going to change because the stone is a different thickness. So I'll go ahead and just put that on there real quick. Now it's very minimal, but it reads at 18.95. Sorry, 19.15. The stone wasn't in all the way. So 19.15, meaning we have to lower our angle a little bit to get right back down to 19. All right, now our angle is the same. We're gonna just mark it with Sharpie just to be 100% positive. So we're going to dry this off. And same thing as before, we're just aiming for refining the apex and removing the previous grit scratch pattern. That's all we're really looking for. Our major reprofiling is done. We got our apex, so we're just trying to get a nice pretty edge, to be honest, and get a nice sharp edge. And you know, the more you refine the apex, the sharper the knife will be, and that's, you know, typically why people assume when you go to a higher grit, you're gonna get a sharper knife, and it's just because it becomes easier and easier to refine that apex. But there's people out there who can get insanely sharp knives with the coarse edge, sharper than some people can get with a mirror edge. You know, it's not common. It takes a lot of dedication, hard work, and practice to do that, but it is definitely possible. It's just refining that apex, and it requires a lot of skill to do that with a coarse grit. So you see our angle matches up perfectly. When I was going through this at first, I kind of felt a little bit of residual burr being knocked off, which is a good sign. You kind of want to feel that. The more and more of the burr we remove, the sharper and sharper it's going to be. So we just finished with the 400 grit. You can see a polish is just barely starting to form. So now we're gonna move to this 800 grit, which will leave us a pretty decent polish for what this is. Now you can see here to finish, I am literally just doing upward strokes, one side each. It's kind of a pain, but it's worth it in terms of the end result, which kind of ensures that you're removing any little bit of burr that's left. And that should do it. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off. Now, if I were, you know, continuing with this system, I would put this strap on, do the strap in a downward motion only like this, so flip it over, do the same on the other side. But I'm actually gonna use my freehand strap because I wanna pull this off and show you guys the results just straight with the stone and no strap. I'd like you guys to see what this edge looks like. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and pull this off. I guess I could just do that. So, let's see. So that's the edge so far. There we go, that's a better shot. I mean, it's a pretty good edge for what you get there. And then we'll strap it up and I'll let you guys see it and see what you guys think. After a nice drop, this is what we're looking at. It's not a perfect mirror, but that's the kind of not what we're after. A nice little bit of a toothy edge on that mirror will increase your performance, in my opinion. Leave a bit of micro serrations, and personally, I don't mind if it's a perfect mirror, just want it to cut really well, and that's what it'll do. I'm gonna pause it here, and I'm gonna go get something to cut and let you guys see. All right, so I went and got some stuff to cut, and let's see, this thing is sharp. Look at that. So, when you hear how silent that is, it's a great, great edge. Yeah, that's it. Again, one last look at that edge. It's got a nice polish to it. You can see in the reflection, but it's still got some scratches in there. But again, for the price point, what you get out of it, I think it is just phenomenal. The setup that you guys see here, again, $50 for the Worksharp Precision Adjust. We'll just say $18 because that's the new one that's out for the stone holder. Then we have the 2 Venev stones, okay? Just that alone would be $93. You add in an angle cube for 18, you're looking at 111. And then if you want to add a strop, 118. Compound can be 3 to 20 or more, so compound we'll leave out. But for about $120, you can have all this minus the compound. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope this gets some more people into sharpening, because at the end of the day, that's what I'm here for, is getting more people to enjoy sharpening their own knives and getting some good results out of it. So y'all have a wonderful day. Any questions, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you.